here we go. At the top of the class on a roll. And it's time to run.
Appreciate the stage. Life is to be appreciated. Life in itself is respiration. Life is to succeed in perspiration. Life is to be consistent in inspiration. Life is an everyday demonstration. Life has its own frustrations. Life can be a soul irrigation. Life is dedication. Life is a flood out of glands. Life, again, I say, is perspiration. Life is the sky in coloration. Life is good and bad. Life is to be appreciated. With that epiphany, allow me to now share something great. A cry of a broken soul in that mental state. Take a moment and listen to my pain. Autumn cry. Tears to the ground. That's my pain and I. Another bout, another round. Life has ways. This time it was south. It said a verb or a noun. Best not look up. I call the sun day. It looks down, so I look down. I frown. It's a smile. You won't understand. It amuses my demons. Because if I don't trend, I chant death to defeat life, to take the title, my very breath. Don't push me. I'm already dead. Give or take, for God's sake. My heart just froze. Converse me to pose. One day to my lifeless self, you'll throw a rose. Maybe finally you'll see it was a smile. You would not understand. A pest to my own self. Punch warm enough, and I breaks. Pieces of my heart. Every day, I breaks.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Podversation. If it's a conversation, it's a Podversation. So let's podversate. Today's conversation is very straightforward. One beautiful conversation that I'll be holding in terms of my hobbies. And it's going to be much of a special. It's going to be every single Thursday where you don't get to see my face but hear my voice. And right now, as you've possibly already seen, every time I enter this one, it's not precisely with a quote, it's more or less with a poem, right? And today I believe you heard two of my poems there that are there as well. I'm not going to be promoting any one of my books, but there are books that are available under GB Langa. You go in there, you just Google it, you'll find the author, and then you'll find the books that are already out and about and doing the most out there as well. So yes, so today what are we really going to do? We're going to basically dive into it. As I said, we're dabbling in terms of poetry and art as two of my main hobbies. And one thing that I'll be doing with you is basically just breaking down the very same poems that you've just heard right now and kind of reading them to you and breaking them down for you to really get a depth of them as well. So this is nothing more but just having a dash here and there to assure that everybody has content to really go for the ones that follow the channel. It's just going to be precisely that. So be made alert, be aware of that, and every single Thursday be here, be listening. And if you want a poem, maybe I might write you one. Who knows? It depends on how your emotions and feel of what you're feeling and what you really want me to pen down for you might really work out for me. So dabble in the comments there. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. If you're on Spotify, don't forget to follow us as well. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to follow us as well. And get a little bit more of a taste of what we're bringing on to you today. So let us begin. Let's go. Appreciate the Stage was the very first poem in which you heard when I was dabbling in there. Out of the two, which is the most simplest, most straightforward one, I won't really be breaking it down like that, but as I'm going to be reading it a little bit more in order to really reflect on it a little bit so that you guys can believe that it was me reading it. Life is to be appreciated. Life in itself is respiration. Life to succeed is perspiration. Life to be consistent is inspiration. Life is an everyday demonstration. Life has its own frustrations. Life can be a soul irrigation. Life is dedication. Life is a flood out of glands. Life, again I say, is perspiration. Life is the sky in coloration. Life is good and bad. Life is to be appreciated. Within this poem itself, it was more of a thing of when it was written, the emotion that really flowed through it, as I believe even the art kind of flows the very same mood of the two poems here. It's mainly to say it was a struggle to really appreciate life and really see the work that is being put in by myself at the time, and one thing that I saw, I was like, I need to really put these emotions really through a pen and paper. And when I did that, that's when I really started penning something like this that gave me realization of where I am and where I can go. And at that very time, this is what the direction really has, and what do I really need to do. All those words came into play, but all of them were screaming life, 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 life. And there were no suicidal thoughts, that nobody come across that. Hence, life should be appreciated, because in life we breathe. Obviously, the respiration comes into form. Life and succeed is perspiration again, right? That's another thing as well. Obviously, you sweat to succeed. You have to work. You have to put in the work in order to have that accumulate that success. Life being consistent is a very much aspiration. We wish to be consistent as possible so that we can remain as to where we are and possibly even move further from where we will be at that very time. And every day, it's just practice. It's demonstrating to you what can become. That's basically how it is. It's demonstrating to you what it can become. So hence, life is a demonstration. Life has its own frustrations. There will never be there will never be life without a negative. It won't run on positives only. It has to run on negatives so that you can actually see growth and grow into that. So hence, can be a soil irrigation. Obviously, you grow when you are plowing, and if you're a farmer out there, you kind of would understand the soil irrigation. You have to irrigate the soil. You have to really work on the soil so that you can be able to know what you're really growing in that particular soil. So soil irrigation, in this case, is soil irrigation. The soul is more of a soil in that very case. Life is dedication. Right, life being dedication, it's you need to be dedicated in order to achieve what you need to achieve. Obviously, life is a flood out of glands, right? Basically, I'm repeating again that line of that you really have to sweat for what it is, but that sweat is so much that sometimes it can really frustrate you, that it needs that very dedication. As you get dedicated, you obviously will sweat into that. Life again is perspiration. I basically was repeating the very same thing and mainly kind of explaining the line in itself that passed prior there. Life is the sky in coloration, right? Life is very colorful when you choose to, because we define our bads, we define our goods, but life is as colorful as you can define it. That's basically what it is, because the sky defines the weather. So the mood is defined by that in itself. So that's my one's a little bit deep, as it is. And life is good and bad. Here I was just brazing through. Life is to be appreciated. So appreciate everything in life, because the good and bad are there to obviously make life really worth it and really grow as we should, right? Our comfort zone will never really grow us. And that's basically appreciate the stage. One of the poems that was short, straight to the point, and one in which I also loved into that form. Beautiful thunder. Now listen to that. Oh my God, isn't that beautiful? Anyway, let's leave nature a bit. Now, autumn cry, tears to the ground, that's my pain and I. Another bout, another round, life has ways. This time it was south. Is sad a verb or a noun? Best not look up, I call the sun day, it looks down, so I look down, I frown, it's a smile, you won't understand, it amuses my demons, because if I don't trend, I chant death, to defeat life, to take the title, my very breath. Don't push me, I'm already dead. Give or take, for God's sake, my heart just froze. Convince me to pose one day to my lifeless self. You throw a rose, maybe finally you'll see it as a smile. You would not understand a pest to my own self. Punch warm enough, and I breaks pieces of me, my heart. Every day I rakes. This is a very crucial poem, more especially in society in itself. I linked it with this one in particular due to some of those factors in themselves. Let's just start from the beginning with this poem. It's one poem which basically it's more not precisely my emotions, but it's more of me putting myself in a person's mind frame of who is really having a very hard time with mental health sometimes, and actually having a very, very hard time coping with a few things in their lives. This is one of those poems that really say I want to die, and people don't really see that I am struggling. I'm having a very hard time with so much, and people don't really see that, but I really want you to see that. And sometimes you ask me to pose and smile with you, and I will smile with you for that time being, but it doesn't mean that I'm okay. I am really struggling. Listen to me, hear me out. This is one of those poems that really sees that through. So I'm going to be breaking it down line by line so that you can really hear it and see it, and really be able to visualize the picture a little bit more better. And get the lines that are a little bit deeper here and there, because I know there are some lines that are like that at most, so that everybody can be able to understand them. Autumn cry, tears to the ground, obviously. That's my pain and I. Right, so obviously when the tears hit the ground, that's you. That's the pain that I'm feeling, that I'm now putting down to the ground. Right. Another bout, I'm basically fighting, another round. It's another day of me dropping my tears, another fight for me again. Instead of blood, it's tears that are coming out to cry out in a way. So I'm fighting this very feeling. Life has ways, right? So life has ways. This time it was south. So obviously we know that once it becomes cold, right? Once it becomes cold, what happens to the birds? Birds most of the time would represent life, because of when you look at the Ark of Noah. Now this is where I go a little bit deeper. The Ark of Noah, they sent out a bird to really check if there's life and all of that, and that's what it's here. So if a bird normally travels to the south when it gets cold in the north, it's a sign of saying it's getting cold. There won't be much of life here for me. So it's heading south. So basically my life is about to basically not look up. That's basically what that means. Is said a verb or a noun? Now I've literally now portrayed sad as a verb or a noun. We know that sad is obviously an adjective. In this case, I think then people will be like English G. But is it a noun? Is it named? Is it a name of something? Right, that's one thing. And a verb obviously is an action word. Am I acting it? Right, in this case, am I it or am I it? It's a confusing one there, but am I a basically, am I named, but at the same time not named as in named, but am I a thing? Am I no longer human that I can now identify to have a pronoun? And again, is it a verb? Am I acting it? Am I acting exactly that? That's another line in there. Best not look up, right? So obviously, best not look up. Basically, better not try to ask God to save me, because I really can't see it happening. Because if I look up, then people will then basically portray me as happy and not really see my pain at the same time, and obviously it's a sense of saying I've given up again on praying to the Most High. I call the sun day. Now this is where that ties in. I call the sun when the sun is out. I call the day, obviously, right? But at the same time, I call the sun day. Basically, I call out on God, right? But again, when God looks down at me, I'm then ashamed to look at him. This is where it goes. It looks down, right? So obviously the sun is on you. It's obviously heating you because you can't see it. It's going to blind you. You have to look down. But at the same time, I'm ashamed to call on God. So I have to look down, So I look down. I frown. I'm ashamed of the thoughts that pass my mind. So hence I'm also looking down. It's a smile you won't understand. It's a smile because it's a mask that I've put on that you guys don't see, but I'm not smiling. You do not really understand, right? It amuses my demons. Obviously, in this case, it is basically some form of joy. This is where I really find, where I don't really find pleasure myself, but my demons really love this. And for some reason, I also don't, but it's where I am. It's where my mask puts me, right? Because if I don't trend, right? So in a sense, if I try to speak out, on socials in a way, hence if I don't trend, if I don't really speak about it, and it doesn't really get to people who really can really see it, then I chant death. So then in that case, I'll be like, okay, cool. I'm not trending. People are not really seeing how I need to be happy. I will scream it out and chant it. And chant that I need to die. Basically, in this case, I want to die, if I would put it proper, to defeat life, to obviously now commit suicide, to take the title, my very breath. So me taking my own breath becomes then the title which I take to wherever I go after I am not in this world, right? But at the same time, if you push me, basically if you start bullying me into that position, you are basically pushing an already dead person. You never even saw that I was already dead, because I was trying to tell you that I am, and I was chanting death, and you're like, kill yourself or something in that manner. Then you're pushing me, and I'm already dead. Inside, I've already given up. I'm already dead. Give or take, right? For God's sake. Right, so it's either you give you give an ear, you give an understanding, or you basically take yourself away in a way that says, okay, fine, I won't really concern myself with these matters, but I will just be here. That's where give or take comes in. For God's sake, my heart just froze. So now I've got a very cold heart. Convince me to pose, right? Obviously, when you're posing in a photo, you're basically more or less frozen when you look at a photograph of yourself. One day to my lifeless self. Now, get the fact that when I say my heart has frozen, my heart is no longer beating. I am dead, obviously. And convince me to pose, obviously. You'll just remember me. Convince me to pose now, because that's the way that you'll ever remember me in a photo. One day to my lifeless self. Right now, one day to my lifeless self. So in that case, because you just posed, now to my lifeless self, you'll throw a rose, because now I'm dead. I'm there in my casket, and now you're throwing a rose at my casket. Maybe finally you'll see it was a smile. You would not understand. right? So now finally you'll be able to see that all that time all I was doing was pretending. I was posing to be something else, right? I was not that, and you were not understanding. I was a pest to my own self, a pest to my own self. I was a nuisance to my own self. I didn't want myself in any form or any case, hence a pest to my own self. Punch warm enough and eye breaks. If you basically just punch me as good at that time, which I was still alive, you would have seen that I would break. That each and every single day, pieces of my heart, every day eye rakes. That each and every single day, my heart breaks down and is on the ground, and I have to take a rake and rake it out and glue it possibly back into pieces that really make sense. So those are the poems which are there, which I've put up for everyone to really see and hear. And we wish that you guys really enjoyed this segment of Poetic Thursday. It's one beautiful day in itself that I will continuously be making. Next week we'll be reading another poem. I will be telling you more about that one, but for now, just do remember, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and press the notification bell, like as well, obviously for the YouTube algorithm, and let's get poetic. It's Poetic Thursday. Tell me what you think in the comments. Share this with your friends, share it with your friend of your friend, and enjoy some good poetry on Poetic Thursday. Let's be good. Let's be good to one another. God bless you. See you again soon.